As far as the other issues before Congress, I really can't tell you what's going to happen. As far as the debt ceiling issue, as far as the putting together what's not really a budget. The state is called a budget. With us, it's called a final appropriations process. But basically, it's to resolve the spending of the United States in the fiscal year beginning October 1st. Right now, both sides are far apart. I think that in another time, in another place, these issues that could have been resolved. It's with Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neil, and in that climate, yes, I think a deal could be reached. In the climate today, I'm not certain, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. About the political landscape has changed. It's really interesting when you talk to people. They say, "Why can't you get together? Why don't you?" Then you ask people what they mean by getting together, and generally it means to come down on the side that they want you to come down on. The idea it's very difficult to find people who genuinely want compromise, and there's any number of reasons for that. I think cable TV is part of it, where we can live in parallel universes. You can watch Fox and MSNBC. Both are basically giving you the facts, but again, they're on one side of the issue. And to me, as a Republican, I say thank God for Fox because of the liberal bias of the mainstream media. But as a result of all of that, you have people on the left, people on the right, again, living often in parallel universes and not being able to come together. You find also with the congressional districts, the way they're drawn, it's very difficult. Unfortunately, it's not that difficult in New York, but it's difficult in other parts of the country to lose an election to somebody in the other party because congressional redistricting has become so fine-tuned that the legislatures can draw districts that are almost guaranteed to go Democrat or Republican, and generally they work it out among themselves. And so you don't have to worry, for the most part, going into the next election about losing the general election, because you are coming from a very strong Republican district or a very strong Democratic district. But what you do have to be worried about is losing your party primary, because that's where the election is really fought. And if you have say a solid Republican district, solid Democratic district, and you worry about the primary, in a primary you're lucky if 10 or 15% of the voters come out. I would say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, but 10% of each party is absolutely committed to what they believe in. They're not looking for compromise. And that 10% is going to come out in the primary. So now you have to get together another 10 or 11%. If you're going to go against your party's base, or if you're going to take on issues that they're not satisfied with, you could very easily lose a primary, even though in a general election you may win 2 or 3 to 1, or even though a majority of your own party may agree with you. But it's the activists that come out in primary. So it's the activists in both parties are driving the agenda. And you'll see it in case after case. It's true of Republicans right now. It's also, I can assure you, true of the Democrats, that it's the party basis. I'll give you an example. In 2011, when we had the last debt ceiling crisis, and President Obama and Speaker Boehner had worked out, despite what they say, from all accounts that I know, they had worked out in a general agreement where there would be a way for taxes to go up, and also there would be entitlement reform. So Boehner would be giving in the taxes, the president on entitlement reform. I think the way the taxes would go up, they wouldn't actually raise taxes. They would allow certain tax cuts to expire. It's semantics, but that's the way you have to try to sell these things. And then on the other side, the president was going to have entitlement reform with Social Security and Medicare. Within, I would say, less than 24 hours, Democrats leaked it to Nancy Pelosi, who come out raging against it, said this would undermine the entire Democratic Party. Conservatives leaked it to Rush Limbaugh, who was all over radio, saying that Boehner would sell out the Republican Party. And within the next 24 hours, both the president and the speaker denied they ever had a deal. But that's how quickly it went, because the party bases just went crazy. And it was not a consensus in Congress that they wanted to take on the party base. It was not worth it. And so that's one of the reasons we're in the situation we're in today. Now, people say, why not do the courageous thing? I think people should, but not everyone does. And it's also easy to say that when you're on the outside looking in. But when people, again, I feel that government reflects the people. In democracy, the Congress reflects the people. And I don't think we've ever had a country more harshly divided than it is right now. And that's reflected in Congress. The people in Congress, they come in, they make absolute commitments. They're never going to vote for this, they're never going to vote for that. And they, rightly or wrongly, they stated their word. They're not going to vote for it. Well, if they're going to keep to these hardline positions they took, and the other side is going to keep to the hardline positions they took, and they feel they owe it to their voters, then you're not going to get agreement. And Ronald Reagan was one of the most ideological presidents we ever had, but he was able to work out compromise. Tip O'Neill was one of the most liberal speakers of the House we ever had. They were able to work out compromise. Despite the stories that are out there, the two of them really didn't like each other that much, but they did what they had to do, and also there was more party organization in those days. So if Reagan and O'Neill shook hands on a deal, they could go back to their congressional leaders and say, do what you have to do, ram this through. It's very hard to do that anymore because in the name of democracy, everything is much more transparent and open, which means that within hours of a deal being worked out, it's out there, and the grassroots can start in, whether it's talk radio, whether it's websites, whether it's this organized groups who are willing to rise up. It's very hard to put together a deal, and it makes it more difficult. Now, we have to accommodate, we have to change with the times, but until we do, that's why you're going to see this constant friction of going down to the wire, sometimes going past the wire, and then basically putting a Band-Aid on it until we get to the next year, and the program just intensify.